In this presentation, we will be discussing the physiological and psychological effects of workplace fatigue and stress. We will be covering the most common causes of fatigue, how they affect the body and mind, and then we'll be discussing how we can implement the hierarchy of controls to reduce workplace fatigue and stress. Most of us work more than 40 hours a week. This is one of the most profound and complex problems for managers, safety professionals, and industrial hygienists is employee workplace fatigue, reducing it and monitoring it. So some of the most common causes of fatigue are physical, mental, and environment. And they're broken into these three categories for a reason. So with physical, we have to look at the physical load, forceful exertion, awkward posture, static load, and repetitive movement. Being in the fire service, you are subjected to a lot of physical exertion, forceful exertion, awkward posture, static load, repetitive movement. A couple examples of these is your SCBA sitting on your back. That's a static load. You climbing up and down ladders multiple times or hitting and breaking in doors is a repetitive movement. The forceful exertion of climbing, uh, pushing and pulling, whether it be using a hose line or pulling a body out of a burning building, that's a lot of forceful exertion and a lot of physical load. The mental strain causing a fatigue is how much you're working, irregular work hours, job demands, whether you have a physically, mentally demanding job, the job stress. Do you have to deal with a lot of people every day of the week? Do you have to see situations where people are in the worst day of their life, or do you just have to sit there behind the computer and looking at the screen? How are your relationship with your coworkers? Are they toxic? Is it a good relationship? Not good relationship? Those are some of the factors. And then the type of decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis. Last but not least, we all have to worry about the environmental issue causing fatigue, such as it being hot or cold, the noise, whether you have loud noises, you're subjecting to hearing loss, light level, whether you have to deal with a lot of light, little light, or no light. Some of the vibrations, depending on your job, using a jackhammer creates a lot of vibrations through your body, so therefore you're physically exerting yourself, and then mental fatigue sets in. And then, a lot of people don't really consider humidity, but humidity is one of the leading causes of fatigue because it doesn't really let you recover after being in a hot environment. So the facts is that we're overworked. End of story. Time to go home. Let's go take a nap. I'm ready for one. But in reality, 1 in 4 Americans work over 40 hours a week, which is roughly 30 million people, that's a lot of people. And due to that, we're going to have a greater chance of potential or major disasters as a result of work fatigue or human error. Some of these disasters that we're facing or we have faced is the nuclear meltdown at 3 Mile Island and the grounding of the Exxon Valdez oil tanker. Now, the 3 Mile Island meltdown didn't actually cause harm to the environment or to people, but because of the worker fatigue and human error, the potential on a grand scale of things was there. So we have to look at that as a disaster or slash potential disaster. The grounding of the Exxon Valdez actually impacted the environment significantly by dumping thousands and thousands of gallons of oil into the ocean, affecting all of the animals that live there, and then even humans as well, because it affects us from the environment. Another thing we have to look at is worker fatigue that contributes to numerous car accidents created by drowsiness and falling asleep behind the wheel. Now, I don't mean, hey, I'm a little tired from working 4 hours. I'm talking about you fall asleep behind the wheel sitting at a stoplight or on your way home after a 10 to 12 hour shift. Unfortunately, I've been part of the situation where I've gotten off a 24-hour shift and, I've fallen asleep. But luckily, I was sitting at a stoplight. So it is a legit problem. And we have to figure out a way to solve this problem. It has been estimated that almost 30% of the U.S. workers employed in schedules that are outside of regular daytime shift, and 37% of those workers get less than the recommended 7 hours of sleep. Based on this chart, it outlines the sleep hours, the percentage of workers, the number of related injuries annually, number of estimated workers that are injured, and then the average incident per 100 workers. So if you get to between 6 and 7 hours of sleep, you have an incident of 3.6 of injury compared to those who get 7 to 8 hours with a 2.2 incident of per injury. So by those statistics, you get more sleep, the less likely you're going to get injured. The less sleep, the more prone you are to get injured. Some of the jobs that have the highest risk for fatigue and stress are construction workers that operating during the evening shift, professional, technical, managerial personnel working over 40 hours, other areas in business and repair sectors that constantly work overtime. And that's a variety of things. So that's a broad topic. You know, some of the things we worry about: nursing, first responders, military, construction. Those are very demanding physical, mental, and odd hours. And not only that, your construction workers. So we have to look at the cost from workplace fatigue and stress. Specifically, drowsy driving increased the risk of motor vehicle crashes by 250% and resulted in almost $109 billion in societal costs every year due to fatalities and injuries from fatigue-related crashes. Fatigue is estimated to cost U.S. employers $136 billion annually in health-related loss of productivity, according to Environmental Health and Safety publication. So we have to look at the behavioral issues caused by workplace fatigue and stress. Productivity, lack thereof, absenteeism, such as tardiness, or just not showing up at all, and then the turnover rates increase with fatigue and stress within the workplace. Psychological effects from workplace fatigue and stress. The human body is an amazing thing, but when you subject it to continuous stress and fatigue, there's some issues that start to arise. For example, aggressive problems. People start to become more irritable. You have hypoimmune dysfunction, and compromises your immune system, making you more susceptible to viral and bacterial infections. Obesity, the body starts to change to where it can't maintain your weight, and you start to gain weight, and it's very hard to get off if you keep subjecting yourself to the fatigue and stress. Structural changes in the central nervous system, so headaches, memory loss. It also leads to early death, heart attacks, high blood pressure, heartburn, medical morbidity. These are different causes that contribute to the death, because not everything from medical wise is listed on here. The psychological effects include depression, which is an individual consistently experiencing sadness, lack their interest, and that they once considered rewarding and enjoyable. Isolation. Social isolation is where an individual isolates themselves from others. This is a subsidiary effect of depression. Anxiety. The person starts to feel uneasy, distressed, either prior or during an event. The hierarchy of controls are put in place to protect the employees and employers for workplace illnesses, injuries during work operation. You really can't eliminate the workplace fatigue or stress. You can't substitute the workplace fatigue or stress. And using PPE will not help you against workplace fatigue or stress. So in this situation, the best control method for this problem is to implement engineering and administrative controls within the workplace. We have created and developed through science and technology the fatigue risk management system, which is a comprehensive approach that is based on applying scientific evidence of sleep knowledge to manage workers' fatigue along with other methods. Development of fatigue risk controls. This depends on the job task controls and what they're being implemented for. Complex tasks need a series of controls. Example would be working a 24-hour shift and needing to recover. You could be taken off the current rig that you are on and switch to another one so you have a slower night, allow you to relax and rest. It could be as simple as taking you out of service for 20-30 minutes after a emergency call that was pretty rough, or taking you out of service for several hours so you can rest and recover. That's why you need a series of controls, so you reduce workplace fatigue and stress in a complex task. A simple task needs simple control. Leaving your desk, walking around the building, even walking outside, giving yourself that 15 to 20 minutes of clear headspace will reduce workplace fatigue and workplace stress. Work-related fatigue can either be acute or chronic. Common control measures at the organizational level include shift scheduling with job and task rotations, training on sleep fatigue, management of sleep within and between shift breaks, incorporation of fatigue mitigation strategies. Yes, taking naps is one of the fatigue control methods, and we need naps. Fatigue control methods continued. There are numerous ways that employers can recognize and evaluate the work-related fatigue. Some of the basic approaches that have been used are subjective evaluations within surveys or self-assessments. Safety reports can be used to identify scheduling practice to create a safe work environment. Some of the recent innovations in fatigue detection technologies have resulted in commercially available devices. One of the downsides of the fatigue detection devices is that many of them are not scientifically tested, which may result in them not properly functioning within extreme environmental conditions. And extreme environmental conditions may include high temperature, low temperature, a variety of wind-related or weather-related, such as rain. So some of the current management techniques that are out there are cognitive behavioral therapy, such as going to see a psychiatrist or a therapist and discussing the fatigue and stressors of work. Other issues and that can be treated by psychopharmacological approaches such as drugs. Now, whether they're illegal or not, that's up to you, but I don't recommend it. The combination of psychotherapy and pharmacotherapy seems to offer a substantial advantage over psychotherapy alone for the subset of patients who are more severely depressed and have recurrent depression. A lot of big words basically means you go see a therapist and they provide you some prescriptions and then you discuss it with your boss to reduce workplace fatigue and stress. Cognitive behavioral stress management. This is part of the taking naps. This is part of taking breaks away from the workload, the mental load, the stress load, and then still speaking to others about it. It's important that we monitor for fatigue. Fatigue monitoring and detection technologies can be broadly categorized in two types. Excuse me. Technologies that predict future fatigue based on users' recent sleep and work hours, etc. And those that monitor, detect potential current fatigue using biological measures, i.e. eyelid movement, blink rate, reaction time test, or performance measures, i.e. lane departures. At the end of the day, there are certain professions that work over 40 hours a week, and even over 12-hour shifts. It is left up to the supervisors to realize when their employees are being overworked and need either a break or in some cases out of service for recovery. This is why it's important that safety managers, industrial hygienists, we implement cognitive behavioral controls, administration controls, engineering controls within our everyday operations to reduce workplace fatigue and stressors on our employees. Now, this may not be the easiest task. It's pretty complex because we have significant demanding jobs out there, and then we have stressors like lack of employees, lack of assistance, and manpower. So we just have to continue to strive for the best and implement strategies that will reduce the workplace fatigue. In conclusion, I'm going to need all of your guys' TPS reports on my desk by Monday morning with the correct memo. If you didn't get the memo, I will send you another one. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.